Suffering is created when we resist what is actually happening now. And what I have found is that when you can be in deep relationship then with life, you're actually in relationship with life then, you come from a place where you're like, okay, where I am right now, I can see or have potential of what is possible. Again, you're not comparing it. You're being given an opportunity for something could be even better. But if you're holding on to something that you thought, again, it was just an idea, that might not even have been the place for you. And so we have to really trust that what is happening now is for the better good, even if we can't see it yet.
Hi, and welcome back to the Turning 30 podcast, a place where we talk about what it's really like to turn 30. I'm your host, life coach Emma Wilson, and I'm here to help you feel better, get unstuck, and be more confident in your 30s. So, being in your 30s, as most of us know, is such a confusing time. It's a time of flux, things are changing, and for many of us, it's a time of huge uncertainty. And that's why I wanted to invite this week's guest, because I think that a lot of people in my community, a lot of you listening to this podcast, are in the middle of huge life transitions and you're navigating uncertainty. And when we're in that space of navigating uncertainty, it can feel very unsettling, and it can definitely feel like we need to cling on to having control, cling on to knowing how things are going to turn out, and that need or that urge to see the future, really the way I can describe it is the urge to look into the crystal ball and understand how things are going to turn out. And we really need to learn more, and I'm saying this to myself as well, to lean into not knowing what the future holds and to letting go of the control of needing to see the script, needing to know the ending, wanting to read the last page of the book, wanting to see the punchline, see the way that the movie turns out. And as someone who truly loves being in control, it's also very hard for me to do. Now, this week's guest is Hillary McVeigh. She's a human design leader and coach. She's got an amazing human design certification program. And she also has a podcast that I listen to religiously. And when I listened to this specific episode that she did last month, all about uncertainty, sitting in the not knowing, I messaged her immediately and I was like, Hillary, you have to come back onto the Turning 30 podcast. You have to come on, because I genuinely feel as though these are things that my audience need to hear about. And of course, she obliged. So you may actually recognize Hillary's name because she has been on the podcast before, and she's actually a very good friend of mine, which you will hear from the conversation because we have a very close connection. And Hillary and I actually met back in 2021 in Costa Rica when I was traveling there, and we just instantly clicked. I became her coach. Later down the line, she became my coach, and we had a very strong connection and love for discussing all of these topics. And I think that if you want to actually hear Hillary's full story, I will link in the podcast notes the episode where she came on. It was a couple of years ago now, and she shared her amazing journey all about designing and creating a life that you want and a life that is aligned for you, because Hillary's story, very similar to mine. We were both lawyers. She left her career in law and went on a journey. She moved to Europe, and then she went on her spiritual journey, and eventually her journey into becoming a coach and a thought leader in the human design world. You'll notice in the episode that we don't talk too much about her story, so that is something separate if you want to learn about it. But what we do really, really dive into is this topic of how to manage the need for control, the need for certainty. And I know a lot of you feel this way about your romantic lives, your romantic love parts of your lives. So I hear this all the time saying, I'm happy to be single, but I just want to know when it will happen or that it will actually happen. So this is the topic for you. This is what we're diving into this week, how you can zoom out, how you can connect to something deeper. And Hillary in this episode calls it the life force. And I personally like to label it as the universe, a universal connection. And we are diving a little bit deeper into some existential topics that maybe some of you haven't heard me discuss before. And I just urge you to come to it with an open mind, to come to it ready to learn, ready to think something different, because I think that there is so much gold in this episode. I think there are topics here and things that we talk about that will literally change your life if you let it. And something really fun that also happens in the episode is that Hillary coaches me, but actually not me. She coaches the single 35-year-old version of me from a few years ago who was really struggling with all of these questions of, I just want to know when it will happen. I was really struggling to sit in that middle bit of knowing that I wanted something and not knowing when it was going to actually come to fruition. So loads of goodness in this episode. I urge you to share it with somebody who maybe just needs to feel a little bit more accepting, feel that surrender, and to let go of control. So without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. Hello, and welcome back to the Turning 30 podcast. So good to have you here yet again.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love chatting with you.
Yeah, I feel like actually this is the third time that I've shared a podcast with you, with my audience, but this second time was me being interviewed by you. And the first time was actually years ago now. Do you remember this episode, conversation that we had?
Yes, I very much remember. It was the first time I'd ever been on a podcast. And I remember being so nervous, Emma, and you were so beautiful, so beautiful in it. I remember we had to re-record another day because that's how nervous I was. I couldn't speak. I remember just not being able to form a sentence.
But remember, it was your first time. And I remember inviting you on and being like, you speak so well. You know, I just knew that you were going to bring so much value to the podcast. And then, yeah, it's really intimidating the first time if you've never sat in front of a microphone and just spoken before. But I just want everyone to take a moment to realize that now Hillary has her own very successful podcast. So it's so funny and full circle to think that I was the first time that you went on a podcast, and it was such a, like you said, it was anxiety inducing. And now you just sit in front of the microphone all the time and it's just second nature to you. It's such a beautiful example of evolution and facing fears, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. I feel like that has been reflective of a lot of my entrepreneurial journey or just life. I'm rarely very good at something right away. It's always been something that I'll have, I'll kind of have to keep showing up for. And there's always been this like knowing or desire there. And I remember really wanting to. And I remember we were even working together at the time and feeling like, I really want to do these things. I have this mission on my heart. I want to share this work. I want to have a business like this. Keyword want. And there was a lot of fear around it. And I just saw that because I look back on that version of myself with so much love and almost so much, gratitude and bravery. Like she's a lot more braver than I even am now, because that was very scary at the time. And the fact that, now I do it every day. Now it's part of my everyday. So
it's just so funny how when you look at people, and I think that maybe people have this when they look at our Instagrams, for example, and see we both have audiences and, obviously we both have our businesses, and they probably, there's that saying, like, don't compare yourself to somebody else's, I can't even remember the saying now. I'm completely messed up, but
don't compare someone else's day 999 to your day one or something like that.
Yeah, something like this. Exactly. And I think that it's so easy just to think that it came easily or that it was like an overnight success. And it's not. Like, it's actually, when I look back, I have this really specific memory in my business of the first ever time that I did an Instagram story with my face, because I was so nervous to show my face. And now I'm like, can't stop showing my face. And people are like, please, can we just not see? We have one Instagram story that isn't a selfie. And I just think it's so funny to think that, if you're listening to this and you see Hillary and I online doing our thing, we definitely had to go through huge processes to get to where we are now. So I digress from the episode and what we're talking about today, but I just love that story of how much has changed since then. I really want to dive into this topic of uncertainty and acceptance and paths unfolding that maybe weren't expected. Before we do that, I'm going to link in the show notes the original episode that we did, because that really gives details of your background, your whole journey from being a lawyer and quitting and going on your spiritual journey, your entrepreneurial journey. And I don't want us to go back to that because obviously we can just invite the listeners to listen to your amazing journey. But it would be great if you could just do a little intro so those who are new here or who haven't listened yet just know who you are and what you do before we dive into the topic.
Absolutely. So at the time of the recording, I think I had just started my business when we did our first podcast recording. And before that, I was a lawyer and was going down the known path, the path of, I guess, what I could map out ahead of me. And what happened was is that I had, studied, worked really hard and gotten into this law firm and was working in this law firm and feeling really unfulfilled, burnt out, lost. And what I came to realize was that it wasn't that I was wrong. It was that what I was trying to force or fit into was wrong for me because everything felt hard and everything felt, I started to get a little bit apathetic, if anything. And I went down this journey of starting to ask different questions, instead of asking these questions of, how can I work harder? How can I do more? How can I prove myself? I started to ask the questions of like, is there another option? Is there a different way that I could start living? And I started to dive into more spirituality, more into wellness, and I came across human design. Human design was my first gateway to a deep understanding of my own energetic blueprint. And so from there, I went through my experiment of navigating this self-discovery, but also understanding of how the universe works. I think a lot of us live from this very logical and analytical, trying to control life. And this only gets us extremely fatigued, frustrated, sick. And what I started to realize is that life wasn't trying to go against me. It's that I was trying to, as I said, fight against life. And what happens then is that you're actually not in a relationship with life anymore. You're actually just in a relationship with your mind. You're starting to try and control with your mind. And this is as well, I know we're going to be speaking today about uncertainty. I was starting to navigate these ways where I was finding certainty in myself, certainty in this life force energy that was wanting to move through me. I didn't have words for that. I didn't have words to understand my intuition, but I could start to feel this resonance or this curiosity taking me into different directions. And I was starting to give myself the opportunity to explore that, to trust that. And you mentioned before about when we did our first recording and where we were at and, the nervousness I had and the fear that I had. It was really because I was stepping so much into the uncertainty. I had left my very known relationship and job at the time. I had left Australia. I was living in Europe. I was in a different country and I had not seen anyone that was creating a life like I had. That's why it was really powerful when I met you, Emma, in Costa Rica, because I was like, this woman is doing something that I want to do, and it really, I felt I met you in the flesh. It wasn't just on a podcast. It wasn't just on Instagram. And it was really expansive for me. And when we are moving through uncertain times, of course, our body is going to feel unsafe. Of course, we're going to feel unstable. Of course, there's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling unsure or nervous stepping into unknown territory. But what I started to realize is that I could reframe or look at uncertainty in a different way of seeing it as a place of possibility rather than a place that I needed to control or be afraid of. And as I said, when we come from that control place, when we try and control our external situation or our external world, we are the only ones that end up, coming from, I guess, suffering. It creates suffering because we can't control. All we can do is trust what we're feeling called and have certainty in ourselves. So from there, created my business, human design teacher. I hold retreats and have my own podcast. So lots have happened in between that, but that's what I do now. And yeah, really love it and really have found a happy place in what I'm doing and what I'm creating.
I love that. And the reason I really wanted to get you to introduce yourself and have that overview is because I think that a lot of the things we're going to talk to today, we're probably going to go a few layers deeper than I usually go on the podcast. And I'm doing this on purpose because, as I'll mention in a minute, I'm really seeing that this is a topic that is coming to the forefront of a lot of the work that I'm doing and inside my new membership community. But I think that it's really important to register. And I guess this is just like we were speaking about before with the podcast and everything you've learned, that you didn't come from this world. You had your own, I don't know how else to call it apart from awakening, even though that might turn some people off. But, you had your own journey and awakening with going from somebody who had never heard of these things before. Like you said, you just started to discover wellness and human design and all of the things. You were a lawyer. You were trying, and even though it didn't fit, and even though I love that phrase, you were a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. And that's how I felt when I was a lawyer. And I was just trying to create this life that was not meant for me. And it was completely against what actually who I am as a person authentically. But yeah, like it wasn't as though you were brought up in this environment and then this is the path for you. You chose a path. And I think it's just so important to register that.
Absolutely. And I'll even say I was so far as I was such a skeptic and so turned my nose up at any form of spirituality, any form of, I thought anything woo-woo was just crazy. I remember even going to my first yoga class and laughing when there was a collective om at the end. Now I'm the one that's starting the om. But the thing about
Wait,
it,
I love that because I have memories of before I got into all of this stuff as well, going to the yoga class and people umming and being like literally sniggering and feeling so genuinely uncomfortable at that, thinking, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Who do these people think they are? Why are they pretending to be monks, And now I'm laughing because it's like, who doesn't love an arm, And the fact that you're the teacher at the front is creating me.
Yeah, deep breath in. And no, but the thing about it is, if you even think about it on a biological level, that I can't remember the part of your throat that gets activated when you do an arm, it literally calms your whole nervous system and brings your parasympathetic online. And from that place, you can be in a more regulated and rest and digest state, because most of the world, and even going back to how we were saying, if you're trying to control life all the time, you're going to be constantly in fight or flight. Your whole life will be in this gripping fight or flight. And then what behavior comes from that? The things like yoga and meditation and all the stuff that, yes, I love, but we got to really think of why we're doing it. It's not the actual practice of it. It's that it just reconnects you back to who you are. And I really want to reflect back to anyone who, I think the whole point that I see with spirituality, and even if that word triggers, that we are here to become more free in our experience, to become more free to create, to be, to do, to enjoy, to live. And anything that holds us back, any form of judgment, any form of ways where we limit ourselves, I see it as like that is part of the, using your word, of the awakening, of just waking up to that. And sometimes it will come through reading a spiritual book or hearing from a spiritual teacher or something. Sometimes it comes through a relationship breakdown, or you lose your job. Sometimes it comes through a death of someone in your family, or your own sickness or your own health crisis. And I was actually thinking about this with a friend. It's like, in all ways, every single human somehow gets to a spiritual knowing, because I just see it as life now, but of just like this understanding of how life works, understanding that we are of like a bigger force, or that you are supported, or that we're all, again, it can sound a bit hippy dippy, but maybe on your last breath, then you find it. It's just this understanding that you are a soul and that there's something within you, and you're not just here to kind of just walk through life and be part of your conditioning. And so you don't have to use spiritual words. You don't have to go to yoga. Like my partner, he is not into anything spiritual and not into human design, not into anything, but he's a deeply reflective and like genuine and honest person to himself. And I see that just as much as spiritual.
So true. Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well for anybody who feels like they can't connect with the spiritual lingo. And I was someone who was really cynical. And I have to say, this is actually what I want to dive into. I'm really happy that you brought it up about the different points in your life where you have the turning points. So you mentioned relationship breakdowns, death, and that can be in the metaphorical sense or actual experiencing grief. And you mentioned as well breakups, breakdowns, all of these things. And it's these things that create the huge transitions and turning points in our lives. And I also think rock bottoms, then when they happen, they're just a sign for us, a signpost for us to be more connected and to do this work. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because in my turning community, the women who are in there's currently 80 women inside, and the theme, let's say, is that keeps coming back is transitions. And it's this feeling of things changing. And again, this is normal. Our 30s, and I'm sure you're experiencing this as a woman in her 30s as well, that when we're in our 30s, this is the time when a lot of these shifts happen because life doesn't always fit according to these timelines that have been laid out for us. And things change around us. They just do. And we're at the age where we're becoming more aware. And maybe it's a collective consciousness. Maybe it's also things that are going on and also because of social media. But for now, women in our 30s or people in our 30s, we are experiencing these big life transitions. And the women in the community are struggling with uncertainty. Okay. I'm hearing it again and again. It's this feeling of life isn't going as planned. There's been a twist or a bump in the road, let's say. And now I'm struggling to know what to do next. And there's so much that comes from that. And again, a phrase that I hear often is, I just wish I knew. We just all want to have our crystal ball and we want to look into it and see what's going to happen in the future. And I was listening to a solo podcast that you did talking about not just about how to manage uncertainty, but the beauty of uncertainty, all the amazing things it can bring. So I immediately WhatsApped you when I listened to that episode being like, Hillary, you've got to come on the episode. You've got to come on the podcast again because this is what we're all dealing with right now. This feeling of life not going exactly the way that you want and how to deal with the not knowing. So I would love to hear, you can just feel free to riff on it in any way that you want to, is how can we take uncertainty as this thing that feels like something negative and make it as something in our favor?
Firstly, I would say even this idea of I wish I knew, I wish I could look into the crystal ball and know, you have to really think about that. That would actually take away your free will. That would mean you'd have no choice. That would mean that you would literally just live out a script or a destiny or something that there would be no aspect of life that would bring excitement or joy. It's like, we really have to think what that even means of like, I wish I just knew. It's like, you really have to get clear of that is because there is a deep-seated fear or control and lack of trust in life. Now, I'm going to back up really far because I really want us to get to the core, because a lot of people would have maybe heard, look, life is uncertain, so just deal with it. Like, life is uncertain, that's it. And I actually don't find that very helpful. Look, I used to say that a couple of years ago and just being like, look, life is uncertain. But in the body, that feels so unsafe because we have to think about the subconscious mind. This subconscious mind only cares, your subconscious mind does not care about your desires, does not care about your fulfillment. It does not care about your happiness. It only cares about your safety. And so when there is an unknown, your subconscious, of course, is going to create a desire or a need to control. Because if there is unknown, it's like, okay, well, how can we make sure that all our external environment is known so that I feel safe? And so what we need to really get clear on is that we're no longer outsourcing that safety to our external and insourcing the safety into who you are and your certainty of self. We can go even further back. I love the Vedic wisdoms that speak about how all suffering is caused not from an external situation that's happened. It's because of our resistance to it. So the suffering is not because you lost the job. It's not because of the end of the relationship. It's not actually because there is uncertainty. It's because there is a resistance against that. There is a lack of acceptance there. And when we accept and have certainty in ourselves, certainty in who you are as a person, and like a true belief that you're going to have a beautiful life regardless. I think sometimes, and this was a real knowing I came to a few years ago, I was like, look, if I never find a partner, or like if a partner, I never meet that person, or if I don't get that the business to where I wanted to get, I really came to acceptance of like, I'll still have a beautiful life. I'm still going to have a beautiful experience here because of course I will. Why wouldn't I? And a lot of people feel that they miss out, that they are separate from that. And so this causes a suffering and then it creates that reality. And so when we have that certainty in self and also certainty that exactly how life is presenting as it is right now, not that it should be another way. The second you say it should be another way, the second you say that I should still be with that person, the second you say that I should be in this place in my career. The first thing that I heard from you, Emma, when you were speaking about your community, it can be a lot of a grief in the dream, in what you thought would have happened. And it's actually, again, it's not in a relationship with life, it's a relationship with your mind's imagination. They say like God laughs when you create plans. And it's this whole idea that we think that that was our one way that we were going to be happy. That no longer is a possibility or where we're going. So I can't be happy. But again, you've outsourced your happiness to this exact plan that was never your source of happiness anyway. Again, you're not in a relationship with life. You're in a relationship with your mind's imagination. And so
Wow.
when we can fully accept life is presenting exactly how it's meant to be for my greatest good, and this is the belief system, this is what's going to create a sense of ease and acceptance in your life. I choose to believe that how my life is exactly in this moment is what is needed right now, because then I actually receive what I need. I'm going to get the lesson. I'm going to get the blessing. I'm going to be present in my actual life, not living in a false timeline that was never actually reality. It was just my projection of my mind trying to find certainty in an uncertain world. It was never like that projection forward. It was never actually real. We think we've lost something, but it was never like the only thing you have is right now. I love the idea of like, when does the future happen? Future happens in the now. Like, when does the past happen? It happened in now. All it is now. And we hear that so much. But if you're in a relationship with the future, you're no longer present in life. And so when we have certainty of, firstly, myself, certainty of who I am, my life force energy, this is your intuition. And this is what I love with human design and the work that I do. It's helping us connect to that. And this is what I know you do as well. And having this as your trusted source and knowing that as life is presenting in this moment, regardless if it's the way that I want it to be, regardless of whether it's the thing that I thought it would be, this is it. This is it. And when you can come from that place, you're coming from a full acceptance, and you can actually have, you can be in a position where you make choices that align with the reality of who you are now. Again, not projecting or creating these like stories that even in the past is now a memory. And so again, suffering is created when we resist what is actually happening now. And what I have found is that when you can be in deep relationship then with life, you're actually in relationship with life then, you come from a place where you're like, okay, where I am right now, I can see or have potential of what is possible. Again, you're not comparing it. You're being given an opportunity for something could be even better. But if you're holding on to something that you thought, again, it was just an idea, that might not even have been the place for you. And so we have to really trust that what is happening now is for the better good, even if we can't see it yet.
Word for word. And it's so beautifully and eloquently expressed. But I want to almost play devil's advocate to be
Please.
person. Okay. So I just for the record, I'm on board with what Hillary thinks. And actually it really, I've been really into Kabbalah at the moment, which is, and I've also been learning it. And a lot of what you're saying is very much a reflection of the learnings that I'm learning at the moment in Kabbalah. But I want to almost put that to the side and come at it from another angle of, okay, Hillary, so help me. And I'm going to use an example that I know a lot of listeners will resonate with. I'm single and I'm 35 and I really want to become a mother and I'm really stressed out. I feel like no matter how much I try to believe that this is happening for my greater good, I cannot accept that this is my path and that there's uncertainty knowing if this is going to happen for me. How can I move ahead feeling positive when I wake up every day feeling panicked?
Hmm.
How, and what would you say to that?
Absolutely. So we have to think about how you respond or would live through life from a panic place. Like I'll even ask you, let's pretend you're her. Let's like do a coaching session.
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
how does that feel moving through the world from like, how do you feel in that panicked place? How is your day to day feeling like?
It feels like I'm trying to get on with my day and do all the right things. So I know if I go outside and I smile at the stranger in the street, or go into the grocery store and do all of those things, then I might meet somebody and I might create this path for me. So I'm doing all of those things, but underneath there's just a constant sense of fear. There's a constant sense of, but it won't happen for me, or it might not happen for me. And
Hmm.
it feels, yeah, very unsettling. I would say that it plays on my mind all the time. And I try to keep myself busy, and I do have a full life. And I do want to add that in there, that I think people will resonate with. I'm not sitting at home and not enjoying my life. I do enjoy it, but this worry will be playing on my mind on loop all the time. And it's the kind of thing that I will get in the shower at night and it will all come in, or I'll go to close my eyes at the end of the day and I will just be, yeah, panicking. And sometimes it can be very visceral, the response, and it can be very in my body as well.
Mm. So what would you say is the exact, like, what would you unpack the fear for me? What is the fear?
The fear is that it just won't happen for me. It just won't happen. I'm not going to meet the partner in time, and I'm not going to have a family. And I really want that. I've always thought that that's something that's going to happen for me. And I just can't believe that I'm at this age where I want it to happen, and I just don't know. I just don't know if and when it will happen.
So what I'm hearing from you is that there is this missing piece in your life that feels like this incomplete piece. And there is a fear that it won't become whole. It won't become filled. And what I'm hearing is this deep seated, why do you believe that you are not in a relationship yet?
I believe that it's bad luck. Like, I feel like the world is a bit against me, and now the dating landscape in 2025 is really bad, and the apps are really bad, and men aren't emotionally available, and I just keep having these bad experiences. And yeah, it feels just like I've just missed my turn.
So this idea of you missing out, this idea of, I would hear like, I'm assuming, and again, it can be a bit hard because we're not actually speaking to someone that, I would get
Well,
really
I
deep with
just,
the fear.
but I just want to say that I think maybe I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but I'm thinking of myself 3 years ago. I just did a
Okay,
post
good.
about this actually on Instagram of 3 months before my 35th birthday. I had a huge spiral. Me and Hillary are friends, so I'm sure there was a time when we would have spoken at this point. Like, I'm sure we would have been in contact then. I don't know if you remember any conversations that we
Yeah.
had, but it was about this time that I started to really freak out. So when I'm doing this role play and speaking, yes, I'm not in this situation now. It's a few years later, but this is how I felt. I genuinely felt this. What I just described in the role play was how I felt. And I don't think actually that when you said you know, what
Yeah.
is the
There was,
fear? Or, I was playing up to that a little bit, but I just do want to say that I hear this a lot of feeling like it's almost just the opposite of spirituality. It's exactly what you said. It's the feeling of the world being against you, or things not
yeah.
happening as they should, being in victim mode. And I think I was really self aware and on a spiritual journey. So I knew I wasn't really in victim mode, but I think a lot of my clients are. And I think that it did come up for me. And when I stood at my friend's wedding and saw how her life had turned out and mine wasn't that, there was this sense, this, maybe it was a bit subconscious at the time, of, it's not fair. Why? And it's just harder now. These are all the limiting beliefs that you coached me on this for sure, about my beliefs about men and about dating. And there was a lot of these underlying beliefs of, yeah, like, I just missed the chance. And now, people, I would often think things of, yeah, like, all the good men are taken, or the great ones met their wives in their 20s. And now, I was 35 and I wanted to meet somebody who was like a similar age to me, or similar stage of life to me, and not necessarily like, I didn't feel ready to be with somebody who was necessarily divorced and had children and all of those things. So yeah, like, it just felt a bit like all of these limiting beliefs that did create this friction with the spiritual belief system. So that's where I was going with it, because it was kind
Okay.
of
Well,
like,
I'll
you're
get
talking.
really clear and I'll get straight into it because what I'm hearing is a lot of circumstances. lot of hearing. I'm hearing a lot of blame. I'm hearing a lot of victim, and I'm hearing a lot of stories. It's literally stories. People are falling in love every single day on dating apps or off dating apps. And the thing is our mind will then create evidence to support the story. And where I was trying to go with you, and I would have gone even like deeper in it. I always like feel into the energy of the person. It's like, okay, beyond all of this stuff about like, I feel like I'm missing out. And we got there of like, firstly, there's a fear of time running out, but then there's also can be some form of like inadequacy of life, inadequacy of self, like not enoughness, or my life is not enough because I can't, like when I measure it against other people's lives, or I must not be enough if I'm not chosen, or I must not be enough if I haven't got kids yet. This is where it always comes down to a really deep seated limitation that I believe we came here to transcend. I believe that your soul came here in this human form, and this is me going really deep, but came here into human form to transcend something. Because we can look to people that have the baby and have the relationship and all this stuff. They've got their own stuff that they're moving through. Like no one got immune from something that they didn't have to move through. And this might be, if you're listening to this and this resonates, and it might be something about like, I haven't found my career yet, or I haven't been able to create the home that I desire, whatever the thing is. There's always going to be some form of a transcending of a limitation that is holding us in this like chokehold until we start to see that this is for something that we're here to literally evolve through. And so, use layman's terms with this, the person that you became in the process of, getting into your relationship and having your baby was the actual gift, was the actual whole point of it. We then go into the circumstances. We want to be the same person and we want to live from our same limitations. We want to live from our same self-abandonment or our same, whatever our thing is. We can create these compensatory behaviors from that limitation. So that person that you were speaking as, there is going to be, I can really assume, I can almost sense how they're going to be in dating. I can sense how they're going to be in life. There's going to be a lot of perfectionism. There's going to be a lot of overdoing and overachieving. There's going to be a lot of, maybe trying to prove themselves, because there can be this deep-seated feeling of like, because it's not enough who I am. Again, I have to just assume what, actually you tell me, what was your reflection? Did life just need to be so, or did I need to control the we can all have these different ways, and it can often come back to a core part that needs some form of healing around.
Yeah, for me, and this comes up, the fact that I went through that is just a reflection of my personality traits in one area of life, and it can come up again in all different areas of life. But exactly what you said, it was a need to control, and it was back to this thing, the need to see how things were going to unfold. And yeah, of course, it manifested in so many ways, with dating, with comparison and bitterness and cynicism, things like this, that it creates this filter where you look through life of being hard done by. And I think this is something that I definitely struggled with once before, and really gone on a journey with it. But I know a lot of my clients struggle with, is seeing life as this black and white, very binary. Like, you do this and then you get the result, and then it's this. It's like, we maybe had this, like, you go to law school and you graduate, you get law, and then and the timelines and everything's very, just very looking at life not in HD, like not in, that's why I see now, like I love to look at my life, not human design, like HD as in like the beautiful colors that life is. I just think that the journey that I went on, it was almost like I fell off the wagon, I would say, like during those months where I forgot, and I had to go back to my coaching tools and really go back into my practice, my personal practice of really knowing, like, exactly what you said. My purpose in life isn't to be a married woman or to have a baby. These are things that happened to me along the way of my soul's purpose, of the reason that I am here. And there's so many learnings within that I can share and talk about what's happened over the last 3 years of getting into a relationship. But I will just say that the acceptance piece for me was what brought my relationship into reality, because I was missing that. And it's funny because I teach it, but I think that I accepted it in theory, like, okay, I'm this age and it's okay, and I look around and there's other women who are doing this, and da, da. I didn't accept it to the core of who I was. I didn't accept and truly believe in the magic of why it was happening for me. And now I always say, when I talk about my own journey, the magic was in the timelines. The magic was in the thing happening later for me than I expected it to. The magic was in having a baby at 36 instead of 30, which is when I probably originally predicted I would have a baby back in my 20s. That's the magic of my life, of it all happening at this time. And I would have missed that. And I wouldn't have had it if I would have tried to force it. And I did try to force it. So yeah, I would say it was the acceptance piece that shifted. It shifted everything.
Yeah. And I think we also need to be really honest with these stories we just say, like this idea, and I want to like workshop it with you because I think it will be helpful for everyone. This idea that you are missing out. Like you are the one person in the world that's not allowed to have a relationship or not allowed to have a baby, or have the dream job. And the thing is, and what I was feeling into when we were saying this, it's like, how do you operate from that place then? If you believe that, if you genuinely believe that that is not your reality or that won't be your reality because the thing of like needing control or a deep centered a lot often is because of not enough or it's unsafe is another one that often pops up. And when we really like ask that of like, okay, well, how would I be if that wasn't the way I operated my life? How would I operate? Like if, and I know you love Byron Katie's work, but it can be even a take on that of, do I know for fact that I have been the chosen one to miss out on life? And when we come to that place, and like, I even like the idea of like, ask everything with a question mark at the end, every statement with a question mark of like, am I the one that's missing out or the one that's meant to miss out? And then you can really come with an honest perspective or a real perspective of, okay, well, because the thing that I was hearing from the person that was just sharing is, or you 3 years ago, is what is that person desiring? Because what does the family, and I'll even ask you, what does the family and the relationship, what does that actually mean to you? Like, what does that feeling?
What a good question. I think for me, as Emma, the golden girl perfectionist, which is who I was, and that goes very far back into inner child work and really thinking about my childhood and how I got, how my childhood developed, is that I was always the best, the oldest daughter. And it felt like the relationship would be proof of success and proof of, and having a baby will be proof that I think it was also about proof that I can be the same as other people. Because I also always really felt different within my community and how I lived when I was younger and the school that I was in. And these are all very deep childhood wounds and traumas, I think. But it's important to say that, I wasn't looking at the relationship for actually what the relationship would bring me, which is relationships are mirrors and they're not perfect people that come to you and you just like tick the box. People think just going to tick life's boxes and then just get on with it. But I saw it as some sort of validation of who I was, validation of success, validation of, I'm truly arrived in the world. And I think I just want to say that I hope people listening can, even if for you, this isn't the same as you don't resonate with the relationship piece, but you resonate with career. Because I think that there are many people listening who will be in a relationship or maybe even not, but the career is the thing that will validate them. You just think, if I could just have this job or my own business or buying enough money to buy a property or whatever it might be, then I've arrived in life. Then I can actually be a real person. And it's just so untrue. And I can really say that now. I think it's really interesting to go to this part of the conversation of, I now have those things, I have the thing I longed for. I have a husband and I have a beautiful 1-year-old son. And don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful and lucky for it. But I'm still Emma. The golden girl has just misplaced to other things in my life that I now need to focus on. So it's really important to say that it can seem like such a box to tick, but it's not. It's so much deeper than that.
And I'd even go further that the universe can't deliver when it's coming from a wounded place. So when anything is coming from a wounded place, it's going to be a disservice for us to receive the thing because it's validating the thing we're here to heal. So if we're coming again, now that I understand it even more, it really is this, like, I will be enough when I have a relationship, what I was just hearing from that. Like, then I'll prove that I'm good enough, I'm doing enough, whatever. Like, and the reason why it often does come back to this, like for all of us. And when we come to that, when we really see that, okay, if I actually received it from this energy, it would be literally reconfirming and validating this deep-seated form of, I need that in order to be a good enough human. I need that to feel like I'm doing well, or I need that to prove that my parents can be proud of me, or my friends, I'm the same as my friends having babies or in their dream career. And when we see that when anything is coming from a wounded place, it's not the time. It's not coming from a true like life force. Like, do we really want our baby to be coming through in a wounded energy? And so we got to be thinking, and this is where you can even see it out when people are creating businesses from a wounded place. And it's not to say that you have to be fully healed. I'm not saying that. I feel like we're all on our journey. We're all moving through our things. But when we can come to a place where this is not necessary for me to feel a sense of wholeness, because when we are trying to create a sense of wholeness from an external thing, we are always outsourcing it. It's always flimsy. So I believe that the universe can't deliver it because it's just then reinforcing that unworthiness or that unwholeness. And so when
Mm.
we can cultivate, and this is what I was feeling into of like, when we try and it's this idea, and this is a lot of us, especially women, we're like, if everything is perfect in my external environment, then I'll feel safe. Then I'll feel okay. Then I'll feel peaceful. Then I'll feel loved. And what we see is that life is always shifting and moving. And you mentioned about transitions, and you were saying about how like a lot of your clients and your community are in transitions. Welcome to life. Life is one big transition. We're all transitioning constantly, constantly. Everyone is transitionary. Life is always changing and moving. Nature is going through different seasons. People are like, we can't control our people around us. We can't control the weather. We can't control our governments. And so life will always be in a state of transition. So humans are always in a state of transition. And the more that we can see that the only thing that we can come back to is what our sense of self and our sense of inner peace, or our sense of, as you said, acceptance. But it's more
Mm.
than that. It's almost a reverence for life, of seeing that, like, okay, life is moving around me, no matter how the external is like being reflected back to me. Because the thing is that the person that is operating from panic, the person that is operating from, I'm the one that's always misses out, life will reflect that back to you, you
I
know?
just love what you said originally about having the confidence to know that no matter how the path unfolds, I will live a beautiful life anyway. But it's hard to get to that point, isn't it? Because, like you said, if you're coming from wounds, or if you're coming from a place where you only define what a beautiful life means to you from the things that you don't have, it feels very difficult to then be able to say, but I will create a beautiful life anyway. And I think it's about letting go of stories and narratives of what a beautiful life means, and understanding that a beautiful life isn't going to be something that is created by the external. You have to go inwards. And that's what I wanted to ask you, is that for somebody listening to this and saying, yes, 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 I want to deal with these wounds, how? How can we stop being the victim? And I agree with what you said. Of course, we do not have to heal all our wounds to live a beautiful life, but where do we start?
Okay, so I have very much simplified this process. I think there is a time and a place to go really deep and to really like, a lot of this is coming from our childhood. A lot of this is either, again, I believe that our soul came with it, but then our circumstances almost like turned it on, a little bit like epigenetics of like, your soul came here to transcend something. Maybe it is this feeling of, I'm not free, I am missing out, as we did, or, I am not loved, I am not enough, I will be, because everything comes, and this is actually what I was wanting to share earlier, is every single fear, every single insecurity or belief system that limits us comes from the belief that we are separate from life force, universal energy. Go with me with this. When you realize and really realize that you are made up of, and we can feel it like energy. You can feel it when someone walks in the room and they have a beautiful, uplifted energy. You can feel it when someone has just had a really hard day and their energy is defeated. You realize when you see a child and like laughing and playing. You realize when, when we're on retreat and you can see like the energy that's moving in the room. You see when you're like doing something you love and you're curious and you're excited and you feel that uplifting of energy. You feel when you look at, when you look at your son, or when you're in a space of grief and like you're in a funeral or a loss, and you can feel like we are spirits, and you can see when someone passes, when they just become their body. And so much of us are forgetting that that universal energy is moving through all of us. And we have a choice of how we use that. We have a choice of how that moves through us, whether we nurture that and we magnify that and we like do more things that, or like be in a space where that is conducive to uplifting that, or we do the things that drain us and limit us and suppress that or drain that. And so when we believe that we are separate, and this is like a deep Vedic teaching, that every single fear comes from that. So you feel like the fear of being alone, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of not being enough. This is all a belief that you're not part of universal energy.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
can't be not enough if you're the same life force energy that's moving through, I don't know, who's someone that people revere, Oprah. Same life force energy moving through Beyonce. Same life force energy that's moving through Elon Musk. Like it's all the same things. They just have different beliefs and different ways that they're operating in the world.
Hmm.
And the moment that you realize that you are like one with nature, of course you're going to be supported. It's just our own stories, exactly as you said. And it can be as simple. And when, even if I'm asking, let's ask you as the 3 year ago self, who would you be or how would you operate in the world without the control, without the fear? Because again, we can argue that they are just stories. Yes, your mind goes and creates evidence around it. That still doesn't make it reality. If I open up Emma, if I open up your body and in your DNA, would I be able to find either the words not enough? Would I be able to find the words she has to miss out? And would I find the words of unwhole?
No, of course not.
Of course not. Okay, so where does that live then? What is that made up of?
It's the thoughts that we create.
Yeah, literally words in our mind, which
Words.
then
Yeah.
creates our
Sentences.
behavior, sentences,
Yeah.
stories, and then we create a whole world around it. And so, who would you be if we just like, if I had a magical wand and I lifted that all from you, how would you feel?
Yeah, you'd feel a sense of relief, feel a sense of enoughness. And when you feel whole and enoughness, you carry a different energy in the way that you respond to life. And then that opens up a completely different scenario for yourself because also I believe in the energy exchange. So when you
Absolutely.
show up not in victim mode and not feeling hard done by or not feeling like, you've got the short straw in life, then people start to respond to that. And then opportunities open. And then you meet people who are matching your energy. You're what's the word? You are in the same frequency. You're vibrating at the same frequency. And I really, truly, truly believe that. Now, I think actually just to share personally what happened to me, it's interesting because I couldn't almost get out of this, what I will call a funk of, I said before, falling off the wagon, but this feeling and I had to take action. It's internal work, but I had to do something to create it. And I think that happens a lot, right? It's like people go on a retreat and you run retreats, so you probably see this a lot, that there needs to be almost like an action step that creates the change. And for me, that was freezing my eggs. Because what happened was I froze my eggs, and which is actually, I speak about this very openly of freezing your eggs isn't any certainty. It's an insurance policy in a way, but it's not like saying, okay, therefore you're going to have a partner and have a baby. It's just one way to protect yourself, almost like I was trying to create some certainty for the future. But doing that, I remember waking up from the surgery, from the egg retrieval, and I felt different. I felt lighter. I mean, they removed a few eggs, but it was more like a sense of acceptance of, okay, now I can breathe. And that relief that I speak of was really there. And then I went out into the world feeling different. And I felt
Mm.
relief. And I felt a sense of now I don't have to have the pressure. I can create a beautiful life. And you know what happened? I met Ellie, or me and Ellie started dating 1 week later. Like that's the story of what happened was I just finally let myself have beautiful life when I wouldn't let myself before. So I think what was really interesting for me is that I needed to have that actual physical almost like turning point that I created. It was something that I controlled to feel exactly the question that you asked me. Who would you be without that sense of, and for me it was pressure as well, very much pressure. And I woke up from the surgery and I just felt I can just go about life now in the way that I want. And I do often think back and think, did I really need to freeze my eggs? Could I not have just sat with myself and been like, Emma, come on, you're okay. But no, for me, it was very symbolic. And I started to date Ellie 1 week later. And Ellie had been in my life for a really long time. And I couldn't give anything a chance because I was too caught up on all of the what if it would go wrong. And then all of a sudden I froze my eggs and it became, but what if it can go right? And I think that's just when everything completely shifted for me in my journey.
This is such a perfect example, Emma, because it's bigger than you just freezing your eggs. What happened in that moment is that you felt safe and you felt, okay, I'm okay. The pressure was released, the feeling of time running out, the feeling of unwholeness, like you had a sense of assurity that it's going to happen for you. So you operated differently. And we have to really see that in those moments, you could see the world clearer. You were no longer in fight or flight. You were no longer in panic mode. You were no longer in absolute fear. So you could see Ellie differently. You could see life differently. You would have operated differently. And whether, whatever means gets you there, if it means freezing your eggs, beautiful. But if it means that you can get there without freezing your eggs, both great paths. And I think what you've just beautifully highlighted is that nothing technically changed in your circumstances besides you freeze your eggs. But it's not like all of a sudden time really slowed down so you could catch your feet. It's not like someone brand new knocked on your door. That could happen definitely when you come from a different place. But you were operating more from your true self and a sense of groundedness and safety and a sense of I'm not lacking anything. Like I got my eggs frozen. We got nothing to worry about. And so you show up differently in the world. And so you can even use that as an example of like, okay, I was able to create certainty then because you then had certainty that it was going to happen for you, and you can cultivate that sense of certainty without that, and that is the whatever it does, because really, to be honest, that was just placebo effect. Like if we really say it like it was placebo effect.
100% it was placebo effect, and that's why I say sometimes I think and reflect.
Great to have placebo effect.
It's great to have it, but could I have got there without it?
Yeah.
So I don't want people to take from my story that I need to freeze my eggs. Absolutely not. It's about connecting with this enoughness that you don't necessarily need action steps. You don't need external circumstances to change. It is an internal shift that needs to happen. And I guess had something that springboarded or, what's the word?
And
accelerated it.
Yeah. And I think we got to get really honest. Does control, does fear, does, panic, does that actually get us closer to the things that we want? And the thing is that our mind says, and we can see it even if you have a business of like, if I'm really stressed and I'm really controlling, then my business will be successful. Again, this is really strong conditioning. What it actually does is it just creates suffering. It's not actually the way that we best operate. And again, I know it's a hard jump to get to, but I'm of the belief that it doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be hard. And what you gave yourself that opportunity in that moment was like, okay, I'm giving myself another story. I'm giving myself another story to operate on. In that moment, when you came out of the operation, you were like, oh, I have a different story now, and we can do that anytime. And you can do it the second you decide, I'm not going to keep being in this state of resistance to what is. Because the second, and this is why it's the annoying thing people always say, like the second you forget about it is when you're going to meet your partner. But like there's actually something to that. But it's the annoying thing because there's no understanding actually what that means or subtext. What that is meaning is that when you are coming from a place of you're limitless, or that you are free, or that you are enough, you open like the glass ceiling of what's possible for you. There is an expansion piece there. There is an energetic component there. And when you're coming from a place of I'm limited, I'm not enough, I'm missing out, you're basically like, you can get to a certain place from full brunt and force and control, but it's always going to be your limited self. It's always going to be from a hard experience. Yeah. And so we have to really see that any form of that fear or that insecurity is really coming from the ego. And when I say the ego is not just, I think I'm better than everyone else. Actually, the ego is, I think I'm worse than other people. I think I'm not enough. That is also ego. And that's because you feel like you're you're separate or that you're missing out. And coming to this place of, okay, can I just open up to the possibility that this could just be a conditioned story? And actually, even further than that, is this my invitation to transcend? Is this my invitation to create that sense of, or come home to that sense of wholeness that's available to every single person as they're listening right now? And it can be literally as something as just getting clear. I have a beautiful friend who does a lot of somatic and subconscious work. And what I would say to your original question about what does the person do, get still and ask your subconscious, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What do I actually need? What is the truth that's trying to be revealed right now? Like that simple self-inquiry. And I used to always believe I needed to do a big breathwork session. I needed to go do a plant medicine ceremony in order to get that clarity. No, you can literally sit down with your journal, what comes through. You can have a little dance, a little movement in the morning, get into your body, what wants to be expressed. And when we make it so simple and just see that our body, like the body and the universe wants our happiness and fulfillment and peace. And we are the only ones that limit it. Our mind is the only that limit it.
And what I hope is that every person listening to this who resonates with it and Hillary's amazing wisdom and shares in today's episode is that I hope that this is your invitation to transcend, that your invitation to release control and to enjoy the uncertainty. That was something that I think I really wanted to say today, is that your life is beautiful right now because it is uncertain. And even though it feels really scary, and it does, this is it. And my last question, which we've already answered, was going to be, what would you recommend somebody to do if they are feeling called to go in, to look inside? And you just gave those amazing journal prompts. So thank you so much. We have to finish. I feel like we could talk about this for hours, endless hours, but where can people learn more about what you're teaching? And I want to, I know you'll share your Instagram handle now, but I do really recommend everyone listening to go and add Hillary and watch her stories, because she shares almost daily amazing, like all of your quotes and everything that you write, like your little pearls of wisdom. I can't tell you how many I have screenshot on my phone. So yes, please tell us where to find you.
Thank you so much, Emma. It's always, I love chatting. And I feel like, yes, we've like touched the surface here. And as a little bit of your last question, especially, I really do want to leave someone with a little bit more support in really knowing that there is nothing wrong with you. And when we see that this is truly an opportunity for you to have so much compassion for where you are, I think so much we come from a place of trying to fix or trying to work it out, figure it out. And I know I gave those journal prompts to like get more clarity around it. But at the same time, anything coming from so much compassion of like, and really bigger picture of like, wow, my soul like has chosen this experience. Maybe in past lifetimes, I wasn't able to do this. Maybe in past lifetimes, I wasn't able to find unconditional love for myself. Maybe in past lifetimes, I wasn't able to find peace within. And like really seeing it's like you can have this opportunity right now to create a life that feels true for you. And that's always going to come. It's never going to come from that place, how we were saying, of like, I should do something or I'm proving to do something. It will only come from when it's a place of like full grace and compassion of how your life is and who you are in this exact moment. That version and this you right now is so deserving of all the love, all the belonging, all the fulfillment, just because you are right now. And it's never those things externally that are creating that for you. It's just enlivening it within you. I always think this, even if you're going through a breakup, like it wasn't that person gave you love or you felt love because of that person. No, you have love within you that was just enlivened in that moment, and it showed you how loving you can be in a certain place. It gave you a reason to feel what was already innate within you. Same with fulfillment, same with excitement, all of this stuff. Like it's never the external. And yeah, if you have a dream or if there's something that is on your heart, like really, like if people aren't believing in that, having compassion for them, because it's revealing more about their limitations than yours. It's like, I feel like when we understand ourselves, we no longer blame other people. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
I love
I didn't
that.
want to finish
Yes.
it at the, I didn't want to finish it at just the, you know, looking at yourself of what needs to be shifted and changed,
Yeah,
because
you're so right. Because
it's
we
like,
need to look at it as you're not doing anything wrong, but here's how
no.
you can also improve your life.
But yeah, this is how it's curious, like get curious of where you're stopping your own ability to truly enjoy who you are. You know,
Yeah.
like it's there. Your intuition's there.
And that's what human design is. I think we didn't even talk
Yeah,
really about human design, but what you just said, that resonates for me. It's like really connecting with the truth and the essence of who you really are. And that's for me, like when I first discovered human design, it was this like big moment of, okay, like I can actually learn more about myself
absolutely.
and truly accept who I am.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, I have a human design certification, and we have a space where we really come together. It's definitely you're learning human design, but you're also going through a process of your own spiritual and self-development. And yeah, it's a really beautiful space. So that's my signature offering. I have a few other offerings. You can just check it out on the website. And my Instagram is designed as you.
Amazing. Really recommend going to check Hillary out. And thank you so much. I loved this conversation, and I know that my audience will as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Emma. Thanks for listening.